To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, that was the most enthusiastic pledge we've had in a long time, so thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 28th, 2019 regular business board meeting. And I will turn it over to Mr. Copeland.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert, and welcome, everyone. We have 3 presentations this evening. The architects and I are just thrilled to be following the students. But this is the highlight of every one of our board meetings, our business board meetings, when we get to hear directly from students what's going on in our schools. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Martino. He's the principal of Kinwood Elementary School.
Yeah, you know how I need you to come over.
Usually it's just me standing here. Hold on. What did you hit? All right, man. Okay,
That's what I hit. I hit that.
there we go.
I just didn't hit it well. Thank you. I'm Dan Martino, the principal of Kinwood Elementary School. Obviously, I have a wonderful group of teachers and students to talk about one of our district-wide elementary initiatives in the Habits of Mind. The Habits of Mind, basically, a few years back, we started out with our Lower Marion initiative of a growth mindset and grit, and then the power of yet. But as we start to implement the strategic plan and put that into practice over the last few years, one of the pieces that we also embedded was the introduction of a new report card to the intermediate level. And intermediate meaning we're starting grades 4 and then 3 through 5. But part of that was a narrative. And in that narrative, we wanted to find something that would define our students. We say, like, what are we going to see in our students outside the box score? Like, what are some things that they could portray and that prove that they have a growth mindset or a grit? And part of that was this development of and implementation of the habits of mind and making them a part of our school culture. Basically, what are the habits of mind? There's 16 of them, and it's basically, what do you do when you're not sure what to do? Our students are faced with, and we provide them with some wonderful opportunities in problem-based learning and interdependent collaboration. But when you're faced with an obstacle or a barrier, and you want to persist and move through that, what are some strategies to help you be successful? And those habits of mind are those pieces in play that can help them get through that when they're working through. Our habits of mind, as we said before, the strategic plan, are embedded in our transformative goals, the personal, the cultural, the global. If you look up there, obviously they've worked through not only those categories, but also are embedded in the abilities within our curriculum itself. We've had a foundation of resources. I thank you, board, for allowing Bennett Kalick to come. She's been an integral part of building the foundation strong from the ground up, not only with our administrative team and our teachers, but as we move through this process of not only the report card committee and our professional development, but inevitably in building in student ownership in this. And that's what it's all about. It's what are our students doing when we're not with them? What do they do when we're not watching? As far as persisting, as far as going through these barriers and embedding in themselves the power to succeed. These are some questions they ask themselves as they go through this. Describe the habit you're with. How might the habit, serve you? What might you sound like or look like as I'm going through that? And what might you hear yourself saying as I try to pull a habit to help me through that time of adversity and I'm going through that? It's interesting because we started out and I said, I just need a couple students to come and kind of tell you about what's going on. And our 4th grade has wonderfully been a part of the integral part of starting this, because the 4th grade was the initial narrative for our new report card. So they already have it in their 2nd year, and our 4th grade team of teachers has been absolutely amazing in pulling this in to not only embedding in what we do on a daily basis, but also embedding in them the importance of how they can utilize this and make them feel not only successful, but make them feel really good. So we started out with like, okay, I have like 12. Okay, that's great. That's awesome. And it was like 15. And then all of a sudden I go up and say, let's go, we're practicing. And I go up to the upper atrium and there's like 30 students up there. And I said, they're all coming? And they said, they all want to come. So I said, you know what? That's awesome. Right now, the fourth grade team is working through not only the umbrella of Power of Yet, but also these 4 major habits of mind of the 16. Persisting, managing impulsivity, striving for accuracy, and listening with understanding and empathy. And with our students today, what they did was, I liked the song. It was interesting. The Imagine Dragons, the song Believer. Now, they said, we have Believer, and of course, I'm old, so I thought the Monkees, I'm a Believer. And as I was going to the intro, I said, that's not the I'm a Believer song that I know. But what they did was each class took one of those 5 elements, Power of Yet, and these 4 habits, and wrote their own lyrics on how it affected them and how passionate they are about it, and wanted to present that to you this evening. So without further ado, I would ask my 4th grade team of students to stand up and present to you the habits of mind.
1, 2, 3.
First things first, I'ma say, do not quit inside my head. I'ma use the power of yet to change the world up. Ooh, the power of yet up. Ooh. Second thing second, don't you tell me to go quitting, 'cause I can't. I have great power, I'm the master of yet up. Ooh, the master of yet up. Ooh. You can feel what they're feeling using empathy with your mind. You can use habits of mind to be nice or to be kind. And if they're being mean, just remember empathy. Just ignore them and go. Do not hit them or be mean. Empathy is a habit of mine. Of mine. Mine. You make me a believer in me. Mine. You make me a believer in me. Mine. I apply the habits and I will be fine. I'm fine. Mine. You make me a believer in me. Third things third, send a prayer to the ones who have taught us all to persist and have made us all feel strong. Oh, ooh, have made us all feel strong. Oh, ooh. I was working on a project trying to use a group mindset, having some trouble with my work, getting frustrated and upset. But it never did, ever did break me down, never will break me down. Should I quit or persist now? Mine, you make me a believer in me. Mine, you make me a believer in me. Mine, I apply the habits and I will be fine. I'm fine. Mine, you make me a believer in me. I manage my impulsivity. Last things last, I learned to not call out and raise my hand and call. Not to kick the ball and just line up to go inside. Oh, ooh, just left the ball there. Trying, I'm managing my impulsivity's better now. It's better now, like mine. You make me a believer in me. Mine. You make me a believer in me. Last things last, you will double check your work without mistakes. In the end, you'll be happy with your work without regrets. So, ooh, double check your work. So, ooh, 'cause we never give up, and we always, striving for accuracy, strive.
turn around so your parents and
Fourth
teachers
grade
can get
students,
some,
go ahead and turn around.
some
For
photos.
parents, thank you.
Go ahead and turn around.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, fourth grade teachers and team.
Thank you, Dr. Martino, teachers, parents, and especially you kids. You guys are fantastic. I hope you do an encore presentation for the whole school.
Yes, we will. We
Okay.
have that set up already. Yeah, no homework. I thought you already said.
All of our visitors are welcome to stay, but if you need to get your kids home, please feel free to go at this time. Those of you who are standing who'd like to sit, I think there are some open seats now, and we're going to get started. Okay. That's a hard act to follow.
And I'm glad they're following. So, the process of the design and process for the new middle school really began in earnest back in November. Our architects, Spiesel, Fielding Nair, came to the district. They're going to take you through some of the things that they've done in preparation for this evening. This is what we're going to see tonight is a beginning. It's not even a middle or an end, and I think I need to emphasize that as they begin to take us through the thinking process. One of the things that I'd just like to say in the beginning is we're really fortunate that the district, I guess 4 or 5 years ago, approved a strategic plan that really laid out, in part, some of the things that you may have seen this evening, with an instructional program that's rooted in both research and the values of the community. When we sent out our RFPs to the 3 firms, we basically also sent out our strategic plan and said, if you're going to be successful, you're going to have to reflect the values and the strategies that the community has done. So having done that first and having some time to think about it is fortunate for us. Our organization will be different. Right now we have K-5 schools, 6 through 8 middle schools, 9 through 12 high schools. We're presupposing K through 4 elementary schools moving to 5 through 8 middle schools. So one of the things that I've done is tasked Dr. Everslag, Assistant Superintendent, with putting together groups of professionals to take a look at our K-4 and our 5A program and saying, we have some opportunities now with a reorganization to really take it the next step. So that's happening while this process is going on. I will introduce Scott Downey from Spiesel Architects, and he'll introduce the rest of the team that's here today.
Okay, thank you. So with me tonight, we are teamed with, are we up on the screen? Okay. So we are teamed with Fielding Nair International. So the 2 firms are working collectively on this project. So with me from Fielding Nair is James and Travis. And Ellen, also with us, Chris from Spiesel is here in the audience. Okay. So tonight, as Mr. Copeland indicated, I just want to kind of set some expectations for what you're going to see. This is not a finished design. We are in the earliest phase of this process. We're only about halfway through that. So this is an initial concept design that we're going to present to you along with the information we've gathered so far with the district. And at this level, we're beginning to establish relationships between spaces and beginning to give some form to the building, but there's a lot of detail that has to be worked out yet. So we have also had broad conversations with the district around a number of topics which will be integrated into the design, but which you will not directly see in what we're going to present tonight. So conversations around sustainability, around safety features in the building, around how accessibility and equality considerations are handled, how bathrooms and locker rooms are configured in the building, and all the features that would go into making sure that specialized instruction at all the different levels and special education needs are addressed in the right way, only some of which is beginning to emerge in what you'll see tonight. So I just want to be clear about the expectations about what you will see and what you won't see, but those things are all going to be part of the process as we continue to develop moving forward. We also have a broad PlanCon state approval process ahead of us, which will influence the design, and that will begin to unfold as we move forward as well. So this initial phase, we have about 2 months left. The target is to complete in March of this year, so there's a lot more interaction with the district and a lot more work yet to come.
All right, so I'm going to share just a little bit about our process. Let's say first, I was quite blown away by those students, though. This is kind of hard act to follow here. So we start design by really, first of all, clearly setting what the vision and goal for learning is. And so that really started with what we call our discovery visit, and that was in early November. We came out for 2 days, and we did a lot of brainstorming and visioning with a building advisory group that was really a mix of many different stakeholders. So there was a lot of different teachers and school leaders that were part of that process. It was really 2 full days of really kind of digging in and imagining what learning could be like at the new middle school. So I'm just going to hit on some of the highlights here about the process, and then Travis will then share the design concepts that we came up with. So during that session, like I said, it was a lot of brainstorming, and it was really about defining kind of what is the vision here. So what you see here is just some of the thinking, the ideas that came out of those sessions, and I'll hit on some of the highlights here. This is just a quote from one of the workshops. So the new school should stretch all learners to think outside of an individual comfort zone within a comfortable environment. So this is a lot of the feedback that we gather. We really want to imagine the activities and what learning is like in this environment. We did an activity where we actually reverse engineered some exemplar case studies and learned from that together, and some trends that came out of that is really thinking about interdisciplinary learning, collaboration between with students and also with teachers as well, thinking about self-directed learning, project-based learning. We also had some student focus groups as well during that visit, and we toured both of the middle schools and heard from the students. It was really great to hear from them what they like, what they wished, and what they wondered. And so we captured a lot of those ideas and kind of discovered the needs and wants of students as well. This is a quote from one of the student groups. I'd like school more if I did more group projects with friends and if we worked outside. So it was really kind of great to hear their needs and their wants through this process. One of the key things that we came out of that discovery visit was the set of 8 guiding principles. And so really for us what this is these are guiding principles for design that we have to make sure that we achieve. And these guiding principles actually emerged from the district's strategic plan. And so what you'll see here on this diagram on the left is what we heard from the workshop. So we did a lot of brainstorming around sort of the language of these guiding principles for design. We then the groups actually reviewed the strategic plan to kind of see how that would then turn into a guiding principle for design that would really guide the design process, and then also tying into the district's transformative goals as well. So the first guiding principle here is our school embodies and promotes inclusion, accessibility, agility, and flexibility. And so as we think about that guiding principle as far as designing a school that supports that, some of the things that we'll think about as far as types of spaces and environments are things such as learning communities, and we'll talk about that in a bit here. Thinking of a dining hall or cafe, not just a cafeteria, but a space that is comfortable for students, that a space that can be used as a learning space all throughout the day. Then spaces for all users, regardless of physical or cognitive disability. So really thinking of all learners in mind as we're designing spaces. And then thinking really about flexibility and variety. There's a lot of different ways that students learn, and so we need to make sure we have spaces that support that. The second guiding principle that emerged from the group was our school fosters active local and global citizenship as well as cultural competency. So some things that we'll think about as we start to translate that into design is thinking about virtual learning spaces, so things that such as distance learning, large group instruction, so bringing in outside presenters, tying it as well to community, so community collaboration spaces. The third guiding principle, our school promotes collaboration and iteration amongst all participants. So that's students and teachers, and so thinking of collaboration with all people in the school. So types of spaces that we will think about as teacher collaboration rooms, small group rooms, seminar rooms, maker spaces, and workshop environments. Fourth guiding principle, our school encourages challenge, failure, and appropriate risk. So types of spaces that could support that, presentation spaces, maker spaces, independent learning, opportunities and spaces that support that type of learning. The fifth one, our school crafts empowering experiences for young people. So again, you can see the types of spaces that we'll think about here. A lot of these are repetitive. A lot of these types of spaces kind of support these, all of these different guiding principles here. So again, those collaborative type spaces, hands-on, project-based spaces that support that project-based learning. Sixth one, our school cultivates student voice, student choice, and student agency. So we're thinking about flexible room configurations so students can choose the best space that meets kind of the learning activity that they're doing, outdoor areas, cafe, dining hall spaces that students can choose their seat from a variety of different settings, and a variety of room sizes, so small and large group rooms, so that way it does support different group sizes. And then the seventh one here, our school elevates social, emotional, and physical safety and wellness. So we'll be thinking about things. One idea that came out of the discussion was having counseling spaces distributed throughout the school and closer to where the students are actually learning. Thinking about things such as yoga and dance studios, or movement studios we call them. Large group gathering spaces, always thinking about safe and secure areas throughout the school. And then the last one, number 8, our school organizes learning to transcend foundational domains. So that's really thinking about that interdisciplinary learning and how we can support that. And part of the workshop, when we were here, we did a lot of sketching, really thinking about the adjacencies, the relationships between the different types of spaces, and we'll be sharing with you a concept plan that starts to take those things into consideration here. But some of the key things, one thing you'll see in the concept that Travis will be talking about is the idea of a school heart, and that was something that came out of that session, is having a center of the school that is really a community space that everybody can recognize that this is the heart of the school. And so you'll see that in the design, and even on these sketches that the groups were doing, they were sketching out these areas here. Some other things they were talking about is variable environments and learning pods. And so the learning pods you'll see, we're calling them learning communities, and so they're really groups of learning spaces kind of organized together. And with that, we'll get into the concept design.
So what you see on the screen is, again, these are early concepts. This is the initial layout for how the site would work. So to orient you to the right hand of the site, you can see it faintly there, but that's Montgomery Avenue on the far right-hand side. As you enter the site, you would orient towards the building, and we've tried to configure the site so that it meets the needs of the school. So there is a drive that goes around, or would be a drive that goes around the building. Athletics are grouped in an area that works with the site as well. The site is highest in the middle and then slopes down more or less in each direction. So the configuration, as you see, you have the drives come in, the loop around the building, that's the building you see to the upper part of the image. The parking we've tried to configure so that it is centralized, which works in two ways. Number one, it keeps the parking activity as far away from the neighbors as possible. Number two, it puts it in a location where the parking and drives can successfully serve both the school for its daily needs and the athletic fields for after-hours events and people coming to watch a game and so forth. So, that works fairly well. The building itself is broken into two areas. You'll see the details on that in a minute. So there's a two-story part, which is to the higher part of the site. That's the spaces right off the parking, the orange spaces you see there, consisting of gym and theater and those spaces that might be needed for a public event in the evenings. And the area that wraps around the back would be a three-story area. So as the site slopes down, we're using that slope to create that third-story area without necessarily increasing the overall height of the building there. So in a little more detail, you can see the area around the building. As you enter off Montgomery Avenue, you orient towards the main entrance area and the heart of the school. There are some courtyards in the middle that we'll talk a little bit about as we go through the configuration. But one of the things we talked in our sessions with the district about was looking for opportunities to connect the learning in the school to the outdoors and the site, and offering those opportunities for outdoor learning, both formal and informal as well.
So I mentioned the idea of a learning community, and you'll see the plan where you'll see a little more detail of how the space is. But I wanted to just share with you just what a learning community is and how we're thinking about kind of breaking down the spaces. So really, the idea of a learning community is it's a group of 4 classrooms that are kind of clustered together into a pod area, and they would share spaces such as a common area and some small group rooms. There would be a teacher collaboration space within that area. So it's really a team of 4 core teachers. That would be there would be some specialists involved in that learning community as well. And each learning community could have up between 90 and 120 students. So we would have 12 of these learning communities that would be distributed throughout the school. And they could be, you'll see them grouped together in 3s. So these could be organized by grade level, but they could also be organized in many other different ways. So sometimes they're organized around thematic groupings. They could be 2 grade levels kind of combined together. So there's a lot of different ways that we could explore it, but it really gives us the flexibility at this point that we could group these in different ways here. Also, they allow for a lot of flexibility, so sometimes you'll have a bubble in a grade year and they will have more students and that, so these learning communities allow you to kind of expand and shrink as needed, so that's why there's a little bit of a range here, but having 12 of them, this would average a building capacity of 1,200 students.
So I'll take you through some of the plan elements, and also we have some 3D visuals at a very high level that help better understand some of the plan elements. So really this is showing what Scott was talking about. Since the site does slope in both directions, we were able to take advantage of creating 2-story and 3-story areas to the concept. So conceptually, all the orange specialty spaces at the very top of the site, that would be 2 stories. And then as the building wraps back around, the very top wing, what you're seeing, we were able to create 3 stories while not increasing the height of the building overall. So, as Scott was also saying, creating a central courtyard that not only creates activity inside the outdoor areas, but also creates an extension to the outdoor areas to the left of the building as well. So this U shape was created, and conversation around building walking distance came up, and so we were able to fit a bridge in the middle, as you're seeing. So that could be a potential media center or library area that starts to connect the specialty spaces to the learning spaces on the north side. But just to orient everybody, the bottom right area, you'll notice that that's the main entrance. So you would enter into a secure vestibule, have the administration areas right there. Right off of the secure vestibule, you could have the potential for displaying student work in a gallery type setting. You would enter into the main heart of the space, the main heart of the school. You're noticing a large gathering stair there that could take you down into another set of communal spaces. Maybe that's the cafeteria that connects over to the learning communities on the lower level, which could also connect to that outdoor courtyard as well. So the outdoor courtyard has really 2 levels. On the main level here, the specialty areas, the orange spaces, can actually break outdoors at this level, and then as the building wraps down around the back of the site, that lower level can actually break out to the outdoor courtyard as well. And you'll notice that we're creating a specialty entrance or an event hall for public events. It's large enough to host public events in that hall as well. So this is that lower level showing how that gathering stair, that image to the right. Again, you're seeing these images. These are mostly reference images to give you a sense of how this space could start to look and feel and be designed. Obviously, we would take it to another level and make it more unique, but this gives you a sense of what type of space that could create. So that's a gathering stair taking you down to a lower level. It would be a 2-story height space in that area. We could have the potential for creating an informal stage or a fireplace down there, make that more of a cafe setting rather than a cafeteria type setting. You would have kitchen and service around the back, which is hidden as you are entering the site. We have the potential for creating learning communities on this level that start to group grade levels together. And then you're noticing those red arrows that create an outdoor breakout from those indoor spaces as well. On that upper level, that media center, that bridge that we were talking about right in the middle that connects the U shape, that could be a double height space and actually have some loft qualities to it as well, where we're able to create double high spaces there. But you're also noticing other specialty spaces repeated on this level, such as art and workshop and tech, other fitness and movement art studios, and music spaces as well. You will notice too that the main and the lower levels had 3 sets of learning communities. On this upper level, we were able to fit 6 learning communities, so that gives you the total number of 12 learning communities for around 1,200 students. To supplement the plan graphics, which are very simple and in 2D, we created some 3D images that start to show you how spaces relate to each other in 3 dimensions as well. So
just to emphasize, sorry to interrupt, but I want everybody, again, this is the first conceptual cut at this, so this is not the design of the building, but we just wanted to show
Can
you.
you speak into the mic or you won't be on video is the problem?
Yeah, so the building will not be blue and yellow. But we did want to begin to show you in 3 dimensions how some of the spaces would relate to each other. So think of this more as really just blocks of space that reflect the spaces within.
So as Scott was saying, the colors are more associative to what the program is, the yellowish orange being those specialty spaces, teetering between public and private. The blue being those learning communities, which are mostly private spaces, and they contain grade levels. The purple, the admin, right off that main entrance there. As you can see, the arrows that denote the main entrance, the specialty entrance to the top left, and then also delivery service to the bottom right. And we incorporated some transparency to these blocks as well to show you that those spaces could be very transparent and well naturally lit as well. So as you approach this building, the entrance, you would be entering from behind where this view is taken. You would be entering the site. You would be pulling up, and the first thing you would see is this entry vestibule, the gallery. There could be a nice covered area right over that entryway. You would see the learning communities above, and most of your specialty spaces to the left, and you have easy access to those theaters and gyms. Again, these are 3D views, but we're also cutting through them just to show the relationship of some of the interior spaces. So as we cut through this building, you're seeing that we're cutting through that heart area. So you would enter, and you would be welcomed by this large heart area that would take you down what could be a large gathering stair for informal meetings and informal gatherings. That would take you down to a dining hall or a cafe down there. We could place a stage or a fireplace and make it very informal feeling. You would have special ed incorporated into that heart area. That could be more of a formal block. And then you would have the learning communities up above and on that back side of the building. And then as we take a look of how that space could start laying out next to other spaces, that dining hall area, you could see the potential for a fireplace or a stage behind that. You would have nice access to those learning communities off the back side of the building. You would have a nice open gathering stair that would take you up to the heart, and a lot of transparency and easy access out to that courtyard, that centralized courtyard that's being created. As we move to that courtyard, you can see how this would be full of life, as the workshop and tech would be able to have outdoor breakout spaces being right adjacent next to it. And then to the right, your learning communities would have nice, easy breakout to that courtyard as well. And the media center library that I was talking about, that would be a 2-story space, but on the main and upper levels, that would be connected. And since how the site slopes down, you would have a nice passage underneath that media center, so it wouldn't completely enclose that courtyard. You could transition underneath that media center. And then as we're talking about that media center, as we cut through that, you can see how that creates a nice connection between those learning communities. You can imagine how students would flow from those learning communities to that library and then also to those specialty spaces as well, creating a seamless connection. So that media center could be nice and big and vibrant. You could create a double height space, but also have some more intimate spaces within this that create actually 2 stories. You can see the learning communities off to your left. There would be a nice seamless connection there too as well. And then off in the distance would be your specialty areas that would be very integrated. Again, talking about more public or communal spaces, right next to the gyms and the theaters could be this event hall that could host athletic events or athletic gatherings. It would be very big and able to handle those activities. And it would actually have direct access out to that courtyard as well. And just to show the scale of how big that could be, that could host numerous amounts of athletic events and gatherings there, formally or informally. So I have a video we could show you guys just to kind of step you through, if it'll let me play this. So this is going to show a lot of the 3D images I just showed you, but it might help ease your mind through the building a bit more as you see this step through it. So this is just going to show you the views that you just saw, only you'll see how it's actually being, how those 3D views are being taken. So this is cutting through that entrance and administration area, and now it's cutting through that heart area that you would be welcomed into and take you down to the dining hall. Now you would be cutting through the theater and the courtyard and those learning communities off the back end. Cutting through that media center, showing the strong connection between the learning communities and those specialty spaces. And then cutting even further to that large event hall, that communal public space. And then showing we can also create a nice large gym space too. And so this is just going to transition into those 3D views to give you a bit of a human scale of how this could start to look. So you would enter into that vestibule, that gallery, and be welcomed by a heart that would take you to your specialties to the right. You would have the administration spaces right off that entrance and the heart over on the right too. But then you would also have a nice open access to that dining hall downstairs with the kitchen off the back and the service off the back. You're seeing the gatherings there and the learning communities off to the right. You could have easy access to an outdoor cafe. That was something that came up before, where the liking of an outdoor cafe environment that we could create. This is taking you up to that main level where the learning communities are. And then as you step around, this would be that media center bridge that would connect the learning communities over to those specialty spaces towards the center of the building. So I hope that didn't go too fast or dizzy anybody. And that's where we'll stop right now.
One thing I just want to point out too is that we still have a lot of work to do as part of this process. Earlier today, we did share this the concept with the building advisory group that we had met with during that discovery visit. And then tomorrow we have a day filled with focus groups to really dive into some of these core areas. So we'll be talking with the media specialists, we'll be talking with music teachers and gym teachers and that to really understand their needs in much more detail and depth. So we still have a lot of work to do, but at this level, this is the sort of the big picture concept, and with that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's terrific. I just want to let people know, I see a lot of people taking photos, which is fine, but we will also have the presentation up on our website, as well as a video of this meeting. But we'll have that up on the website. And I just want to let people know as well that On January 31st at 7 PM, the administration will be at Gladwin Elementary School to meet with, it's open to the public, but was primarily to meet with parents and families from Gladwin Elementary School about the school. And then we have a meeting on February 12th at 7 PM at Penn Elementary School as well. So there'll be opportunities for families to take a look at this and also give their opinion. And there'll be lots of opportunities throughout this entire process for feedback. And I just want to say, it's really, really exciting to see this because I think it was 2014 in which we had a very long process, a very kind of bottom-up, extensive process to develop a strategic plan, for the district, which was really, quite an impressive strategic plan. It was really focused on transformative curriculum, student-driven schools, redefining success for our students, professional development for our faculty, and also sort of community spirit. And so to now have the opportunity to actually build a school with that in mind. And I also want to say that we've talked about the fact that as we're able to, as the fifth grade will be moved up to the middle schools, all three middle schools, it's also going to give us an opportunity to think about how we can use this as a model for working on sort of internally some new spaces in the other schools as well. So I just want to say that up front because I'm getting a lot of questions about that. So at this time, I just want to open up to any board members who want to ask questions or have comments at this time. Ms. Ackman.
I second how exciting it is to just see a very preliminary visual and how you've interpreted the feedback and our strategic plan into the design. Just one question I had is there's a really wonderful sense of like space and spaciousness and light and kind of like tall ceilings, which is, no one's fault, but a big contrast to the feel in some of our schools. Is that something that was conveyed through your community engagement in these workshops? Is it something based on best practices in school design where natural light and spaciousness has a good impact on the, like the mental health and kids learning? I'm just curious to hear because that's really, that and the bold colors and the glass really struck me. So I'd just love to learn a little more.
Sure. Actually, all of that. So, I'll start with the focus groups and the workshops. We did hear a lot about from the participants about natural light being so important. They talked about, and so this was from. In the workshop, we were meeting with some teachers and administrators and that, and they talked about they wanted natural light in their spaces and that. They also talked a lot about connection to the outdoors and using the outdoors as, learning spaces. So that was part of that. There is actually a tremendous amount of research about that that ties to student performance and natural light, and so there is best practice with that. And then I'll say when we talked to the students, they talked a lot about spacious areas, bright colors and things like that. But I will say one thing, when we, at this level of design, we still have a ways to go into the detail as far as what ceiling heights and that. And it is important to have a variety of spaces. So not every space is completely wide open and transparent. It's important also to have enclosed spaces as well, so that way it really meets the needs of all learners. And so when we get into the details more, you'll see a lot more variety in the spaces.
Just taking a step back, I guess this question is for our administration. What kind of supports will be in place to support teachers, administrators, and students with the transition as they transition into this new space?
It's I can tie that to Dr. Gilbert's remarks. The support for this kind of work has been happening since we've started to implement the strategic plan. The staff development that we've done, the work with mindfulness, the work with enhancing what we already do. One of the things that a number of the architects that we looked at, including this group, said to me was, how do you think your teachers are going to respond to now having, this open space and collegiality and so forth? And I said, I think they're going to respond well. They struggle to do it now because the confines of the building make it harder to do. And so the conversations around the strategic plan, I think, are perfect for this. The building advisory group heard me say this. The architecture sort of forces forces behavior. If there's no door there, you can't walk through the door. If there's stairs, only stairs. So it forces you to do something. We do want to enliven the strategic plan, which talks about collegiality, and it talks about student-centeredness. And so I think if we're true to our strategic plan, this is hand in hand.
Mr. Copeland, can you also talk a little bit about, you've mentioned setting up groups to think, what does it mean now to do K through 4 and 5 through 8?
Yeah, so the great thing is we've got a couple of years now to really plan for the 5 through 8 middle school. And so what the groups are going to do is they're going to say, okay, we've got now 5th graders, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. We've got 4 years in a middle school. What might we be able to do that we weren't able to do before? Maybe 6th grade looks less junior high-ish than not, because you have the opportunity to be there for 2 years. Maybe we re-examine some of the things that we do. We've visited some schools that have different kinds of specialty programs that we don't have. And again, I have to be very careful, because if I say I'm exploring something, then people have determined I've already found it. So just exploring. So I said to Scott, I was in a school where a group of kids had a video journalism class that was one of their specials, along with art and so forth and so on. And I was like, I want that. See, maybe I went too far. But I want to at least explore that and say, what are the kinds of things we can do? What happens when you have 4 years instead of 3? Maybe we can take away a look at expanding the thematic programs that we have now. Similarly, a K-4, this is an opportunity now to say, okay, we've got an early childhood location now. What new things can we do around that? So it's really an exploratory situation to say we want to take the advantage of the space, we want to take advantage of the reduced enrollment in the schools, and we want to take advantage of being able to do something new to rethink what we've done in the past.
Thank you, and just to be clear that the reduced enrollment is because we're taking the 5th grade out of the elementary schools, not overall in the district. So just want to be clear that that's the case. Diane?
Thank you. I have a bunch of questions, many of which I'm happy to just send via email rather than go through now. But there are a couple that I do want to have a little back and forth on. First, I love the openness. I love natural light. If you know anything about me, I don't turn lights on the house. I make sure that my windows are, give me plenty of light. But how is this design conceptually different than other schools that you've already designed? Like what you talked about all this process and all these unique ideas and what have you, our strategic plan. So how is this different than what you've been doing? Or does it fit right in and so it's kind of...
Yeah, I guess in many ways it fits right in. Modern or contemporary schools now are designed in this similar way. There's a lot more natural light in schools. There's a lot more of a variety of spaces. There's a lot more, sort of kind of choice, and flexibility is really key too. So a lot of schools are designed with these concepts in mind. But what makes this unique to this district and this school is sort of the specific needs of how we kind of group the learning communities together, the adjacencies of the spaces. And so one thing that was really unique that came out of this process is the idea of the heart being the first thing that you come into. And so that's why it's located right at the main entrance. The other concept that we heard, or that we talked a lot about in the groups, is the idea of the library being very centrally located. And so it's located between the learning community spaces and then those specialty spaces. So it acts as a bridge between those two areas. So that's unique. This plan is unique to this district and unique to this process because of that. But a lot of the concepts as far as flexibility and a variety of spaces, that's how modern contemporary schools are being designed today. And those patterns we see over and over again. And so it's not that this is trying some new radical concepts, that this is really based on best practices, but organized in a way that meets the needs of this district and the needs that we heard from all the stakeholders that were involved in the process.
So to extend that a little bit, you have these learning communities that look like they're basically 4 classrooms per learning community. But we have, at least currently, at each grade level, an interdisciplinary program that takes between 1/3 and 2/3 of the kids off for a separate program at the same grade level. So how do you see the flexibility of this design accommodating that kind of program?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I just want to be clear too, we still have a lot more discussions to have yet as far as to really understand how the program is going to be organized. So right now we're identifying these learning communities. So it may be that as we move further down this process, and we're going to have some focus groups all day tomorrow to talk about these things, it could be that one learning community is a thematic interdisciplinary learning community, so that it's dedicated for that activity to take place. So it wouldn't be that the students may spend half a day there and a half a day in another area, and then they kind of switch spaces in that. So those things they still are possible to, with this design right now, as we're just identifying these areas of learning communities. As far as what they become, we still are going to be having those discussions yet, as far as whether they're grade-based or thematic interdisciplinary learning communities. That those things are we still need to have those conversations yet.
Okay, because just based on what we do now, and I realize we're going to be doing others, we'll be looking to doing other things. I think this is, we might need more learning communities just to accommodate more different things. So, I'm sure you'll be discussing that more. The last question I had.
Let me just interject, because
okay,
I've had the conversations with them, and one of the things I've said is, we're a public school. We're not an independent school, so we can't say we're going to take 300 kids and only 300 kids.
Right.
And so one year you might have 6 fifth grades, another year you might have 4. So it's difficult to say this is going to be the 5th grade area, the 6th grade area, the 7th grade area, the 8th grade area. They're going to have to build great flexibility, because we have to be flexible about who comes. We can't dictate that all the time. So your comments are right on, but it's going to have to be a flexibility of space. Would you?
I have a lot of very practical questions. As I said, I'll email those. But the last big one that I wanted to ask about is the 2 previous buildings we built from the ground up. Both were LEED certified, and I'm just curious as to your thinking in terms of initial design and incorporating LEED certification into that process, whether your mechanical people are thinking about solar panels or geothermal heating or any of that stuff, or, can you just talk a little bit about where you are with all that?
Yeah, so we're thinking about all that, but we're we're a little early in the process to pin it down. So, we are looking at sustainability, and we'll continue as we progress the design. We'll be continuing to look at sustainability at every level, from the site to the building to all of its features. Whether the district pursues LEED certification or not would be up to the district, and that's something that we'll continue to discuss. But regardless of that, sustainability features will become integrated into the design. We just don't know yet the details around which ones and what they will look like.
Right, but if we don't set a goal early in the process that we want to try and get gold or we want to try and get platinum certification, I guess we will need to make a decision sooner rather than later as to whether that's something that we want to pursue.
We've asked when the timing is around those kinds of issues. So we've looked at issues such as starting to discuss when the board would need to make decisions around LEED certification, as well as there's issues to make sure that, our inclusive policies are being followed in these things. And I guess we're still early in that process.
Yeah, and the board has the option of, first of all, it's been communicated that the community has a strong value in sustainability, so that's been communicated. The question is, do we go after the LEED certification, which is collateral to that, is a whole lot of other things and expenses that you may not want to, or do you focus on the issue of sustainability at all? And so that decision hasn't been made, but the concept of the value on sustainability has been communicated and has been agreed upon.
Will we get a schedule of when these critical decisions have to be made and when we will meet to discuss them?
Mr. Spar is shaking his head.
Yes, we will. Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you. It's really very exciting. We're discussing where can we get a child that can we then put through this, the middle school, but that's not happening. But my question, I believe it's going to be to you, but it could also be a little bit to you, which is our teachers who are going to be, giving input. They're used to what they're used to. So what kinds of things are we showing them that are possible, or what have we done to show them, like, these are the possibilities? So when you're thinking about your room, don't think about what you currently have, that you could use more space in that particular room necessarily, but, here's what the pies look like for you to now have that pie in the sky.
We began with it's a good question. We began with everybody on the building advisory group got a copy of Prakash Nair's book. We asked them to read it, and I think they did a nice job of taking the entire group through the process of really identifying who we said we are and what we said we wanted, and drew out from the group those kinds of issues to get to the point where today I really heard some positive feedback from people as they were discussing the situation moving forward. So, gentlemen, is that fair enough?
Yeah, just one thing to add too is so part of our team too, we also have educators on our team as well, and so during that session, we talked a lot about what learning and teaching would be like in this environment, and so that way teachers could envision. The teachers that were part of the group were really kind of envisioning what that would look like. But one thing I just want to point out that this still has classrooms in it. A teacher could still teach in a classroom in the front of the room. I mean, that is a traditional way of instruction. That still is valid. It doesn't mean that, lecturing is no longer happens. It still does happen. And so there are spaces that do support that type of learning. But this allows them to now really stretch even further. Having a commons that organizes classrooms around really allows them to break out into a common area so students can be doing different activities. It allows them to connect with their colleagues and to be able to collaborate with them and do much more student-centered or 21st century learning things. So it's something that will a teacher could move into this and still work in it, but also it allows them to stretch their practice as well.
Right, but where you orient the whiteboard orients the classroom, so perhaps not just necessarily putting it here, so everybody now has to face that way. You know, that would be a conversation that I would hope would show up in the planning.
Sure, and so part of the question will be, maybe we don't have a white board, maybe we have a white wall, and maybe there are those kinds of things. So that's there, but they're not there yet. They are meeting with more people tomorrow, assuming we have a full day. We may need to talk about that a little bit, as I'm getting little reports here. And that, we're going to go there. One of the other things I want to say, because I'm not sure it came through in this rendition, the other message that has been given is this is going to be a fairly large school designed for 1,200 students. We've asked that warmth be a factor, that this not necessarily be a lot of sort of postmodern without some, strong wood flavors in it too, because it is that middle years situation, and so we wanted to temper anything that might be looking like it's a cold, hard institution with warmth will be built in, which is not there yet, and that's it.
Are there any other questions right now? Okay, great. Thank you very much, and you'll stick around for?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, Mr. Copeland?
Now I have to get them out of here. There we go.
I like the way it just frames it.
That's me, popping it across.
Okay, great, thanks. So, the board and some members of the public may know that sometimes in December or January, one of the activities we generally go through is the presentation of a preliminary budget. That's not what this is. In fact, the resolution that's on the board agenda tonight is specifically to say that the board is not going to take the action necessary for a preliminary budget. Associated with a preliminary budget is the move to take exceptions, and in the past years, we've taken exceptions to go above the Act 1 limit in both pension, what we call PESers, as well as special education. We're not going to be doing that, and therefore this will not be a preliminary budget, but it is an initial look at where we are. The board, even though this is the second year we didn't take exceptions, correct, Mr. Orlando? So this is similar to the process, Third year, sorry. Similar to the process we've taken in the past, where we've simply reviewed some highlights of where we are. Also, we're not nearly done. This is an ongoing process which still has some places to go. One of the highlights is our use of fund balance to balance the budget. It's $1.7 million. We've tried to reduce the amount of fund balance needed to balance the budget each year. Last year it was around $3 million. The year before that it was $6 million. The year before that it was $9 million. So we're coming down. I doubt it will get to the point where it's ever zero, but we are working hard to make that happen. We're anticipating increased revenue, which will be reflected in the budget. We continue to have challenges due to increased enrollment. If you watched some of our demographic presentations, both demographers think that the enrollment is slowing but not stopping. So we're watching that as we move ahead. And we're looking for planning for both near and long-term goals. One of the things that I'm looking to do is to recommend, as we move forward, the range for the construction of the new middle school, I think, was somewhere between $80 and $90 million. And that doesn't include the acquisition of the land or the construction or the development of the field space. We're hoping to do that with funds on hand so that we don't have to borrow, and therefore we keep our debt service low. The Act 1 requirements, adopt a resolution, that's what the board's doing tonight, certifying the millage rate will not exceed the Act 1 limit at 2.3%. We will be scheduling Finance Committee meetings to go through various parts of the budget, and then leading to the adopted budget. What drives the budget? Clearly enrollment growth, personnel costs, special education mandates, and the fact that the state has not increased its state or federal funding for Lower Merion in some time. It's minimal. What are we waiting to know? Well, current and future tax revenues, can't guarantee that. Obviously, we don't have a state budget, and we do have pending litigation. Mr. Orlando, this is your slide.
Sure. So this slide here is just giving you, as Mr. Copeland said, the initial budget. So the top line, just under $275 million, is prior to any type of tax increase, would be revenues and other sources that we have. Our expenditures for right now, initial budget, are just over $280 million. So we have about a $5.1 million left to balance the budget. That under the Act 1 index of 2.3% for the 1920 would then balance the budget. The next slide just shows the median assessed values provided by the county is just over $250,000. With a increase in the millage rate up to the index, it would be an increase of $166.
Thank you. This is our budget calendar. To the best of our knowledge, at this point, this is what we're looking to do. And to really take the board and public through the various steps. This is similar to last year. And then, of course, with the financial impact of the millage uncertainty due to the litigation, we have separated fund balance funds for the last 3 years, correct? 3 years. And will again this year, waiting for the impact of, or the final determination of that litigation. And finally, I end a lot of my budget slides this way, just saying, remember, we're a public school. Our entrance requirements are a birth certificate and an address, and we're proud of that. And we're proud that we serve a wide, diverse community with diverse needs. And so I promised to be quick. I'm done.
Thank you very much, Mr. Copeland. I just want to make sure, again, that people understand that this is the very beginning of the process, and that we will be having many meetings and conversations about this, that Mr. Copeland engages in an entire process internally to develop the budget, zero-based budgeting. And so given what we have on the agenda and that we expect people want to ask questions about to the architects as well, that I just want to remind everyone this is really just a very initial conversation, initial step we have to take on the agenda to start the process. So saying that, are there any questions at this time from board members that want to bring up at this point? Sure.
Thank you. Bob, in previous budgets, we have had a surplus at the end of the year. Can you talk a little bit about what we do with that money and what we would do it if we had it again this year?
Sure. So we form a budget around a structured deficit that basically says if we budget conservatively, we're not going to have enough funding, and we use fund balance. And virtually every school district, almost all municipalities do exactly the same thing. And then when you go through the budget process, you really make sure that you dot every I, cross every T, and you're as frugal as you possibly can be. And if you've had a good year, you actually end up not having a deficit, but having a fund balance. That fund balance then goes into various reserve accounts. It could be capital, and that's where we're buying new school buses, and that's where we're replacing boilers, that's when we're doing all other kinds of things. And one of the things that we'll be doing is purchasing land, and because we've been able to do that, all of the land that we purchased for the new school, and both for the building as well as the fields, as well as the construction on those fields for athletic purposes, we'll be able to pay for without borrowing money, which obviously costs money to borrow money. So that's basically where it goes.
So in some ways, it's kind of saved us money down the line.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt.
Well, also, it allows us to maintain our highest bond rating so that when we do borrow money, we're borrowing it at
AAA rates.
right, the lowest rate. So, okay, thanks for that question, Diane. Is there anyone else right now? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask for audience recognition, public comment, but I just want to explain how we do this. So at this time, we take public comment on action items only. So that will include anything that's on the agenda, and because there are action items related to both the budget presentation and the architect's presentation, we can take public comment and questions in a moment when I start that. At the very end of the meeting, we still actually have the regular board business to do. So at the end of the meeting, we take public comment on any topic that anyone is interested in. So I also have a couple things. Maybe I've missed something you're going to say, Diane, but I still have a couple things. So the other thing I'd like to do is if we have students, district students, who would like to give public comment on any topic, I will take them in the early part of the evening because I would like you to then go home and do your homework and even better, go to sleep. So the first people I'd like to invite to come up are students. I see some of our students here. They're always here. It's wonderful to always see you. So we're happy to take your comments. So those students who want to come speak now, please come sign in with Ms. LaPere. So we want, none of our students after that, none of you, they left already? Our students left? They went to bed, that's good. Okay. I thought there were students here who wanted to speak. All right, well, this is when we do speaking, and this is when we do the first round of public speaking. Okay. And you guys don't want to speak? Okay. All right, then, at this time, I will ask for anybody who is, who lives in the district, pays taxes in the district, to come up and sign in if you're going to speak to an agenda item. So please sign in.
That includes the architects.
Yes,
Okay.
it does include the architects. I know there are a lot of people here who want to talk about I think there are people, or they're listening for the architects. So please come sign in with Ms. LaPere, and then when your name is called, you will, first of all, speak into the microphone so everybody can hear you. You'll tell us your name, generally where you live in the district. You don't have to give us your actual address, because remember, this is all taped. And then you have 3 minutes. So anybody who wants to speak on an agenda item, an action item, then please sign in. And that includes the architects, the budget, and anything that shows up on our current agenda that we're going to be voting on shortly. And then at the end of the meeting, I'll open it up for people to speak on whatever topic they like. So Denise, can Mike start? Can you start while Mike? You still have to say your name, Mike.
Okay. Mike Salenson in Narberth, because you can't have a meeting without one Salenson speaking.
I know.
Since the kids won't speak. One thing while I was listening to the architect's presentation, it struck me, I've been on the committee for special ed now for almost 6 years, and one thing that we constantly hear from families in terms of the kids' social school experience is lunchtime cafeteria, dining hall. Kids with autism or kids who are hearing impaired, for them, gym and lunch is the worst part of the day. They're overwhelmed, there's too much noise, etc. So in planning those spaces, and we're talking about inclusiveness, it would be great to be able to see within the cafeteria setting, baffling or quiet space or quiet corner, there's lots of soundproofing ways for those kids to be part of it, rather than, as they often are now, pulled out to have lunch in a classroom with one or two friends or three or four friends. There's this very much this feeling of feeling segregated and, being pointed out that that they are different. And I think it would be great as, within the strategic plan, we talk about inclusiveness, and this is the perfect opportunity to ensure that that happens. And I see that Kimberly is nodding her head with me, so I have the head of special ed agreeing with me, hopefully, that would be something that we really have the opportunity to address in this setting that we haven't had the opportunity to address in our other school settings. Thanks.
And we would agree with you. In fact, if you want to blame me for something, one was make it a dining hall, not a cafeteria, and also have multiple spaces within there, both using furniture as separators as well as spaces within the facility. I know that, and we heard that from various people. So it's not just you and Kimberly.
Yes, we've asked the architects to start from scratch, thinking about students with different needs and sensory needs and those kinds of things. So it's a great point, and we're on it.
Hi, Kate Legg. I live in Wynwood. I enjoyed the presentation very much on the new middle school. Couple questions. Given the number of kids, it looked like there was only going to be one gym and auxiliary gym, and I didn't really see science labs. With 1,200 kids, how are we going to deal, or are there going to be enough core spaces to handle all those kids in the building? So that was my biggest concern. The second concern was, I understand that you can't predict, fifth grade may be a balloon year and sixth grade may be small, or maybe fifth and sixth grade are balloon years and eighth grade small, but what will be done to keep the fifth and sixth graders, but particularly the fifth graders, separate and apart from the seventh and eighth graders? And I believe in the other middle schools, each grade is separate by area, and I know that we're constructing this in order to be more modular, but at the same time preserving the fact that you're going to have fifth graders and eighth graders in the same school, and how you keep them in separate spaces. So those were my two big issues. I know I can't speak about the last issue, but I just want to say the bomb of kindergarten a week before registration was not well received. But I know I can't speak on that.
Hi, I'm Ralph Bishwala. I live in Narberth. I'm also an architect, so I appreciate the presentation. I have a few comments to make. First of all, I think it's a very good design. A very clever use of the topography, I must say. A few ideas that I have just by looking at it, and I'm sure they're already thinking about it, so please take this with the spirit in which it's meant. That the loading dock location, if it was tucked further in the back, potentially would increase that sort of approach, because you might still be able to look down and see that loading dock. I think there's, and again, you might be thinking about it, an opportunity to have some sort of theater built into the courtyard, because the topography already allows for that. That exists in Welsh Valley, and I think to good effect. Is there an opportunity, and this is a bigger question, to access the roof or a portion of the roof safely in a way that might engage, say, with solar panels and become a teaching moment as well? So again, that's a safety issue as well, and I think needs to be considered carefully. And I think that maybe the biggest problem that we have at a lot of schools is parking for special events. Parking on this site must be a really big challenge for you guys. I don't know what the counts are, but if there's a way to figure in overflow parking in adjacent areas, because this neighborhood is not really very amenable to just driving into the neighborhood and parking there. And Montgomery Avenue is, of course, off limits. So at Welsh Valley, when we have special events, it's a burden to park. And some people decide to walk from Narberth or ride their bikes and all that, which is great, but I think this site's going to have a challenge. So I'm just curious to see where the design evolves along those lines. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay. Ms. Lewis? Yeah, I'm here. I'm Ulrike Altmüller-Lewis. I am in Wynwood, and my son is first grade, and at Penguin Elementary, I'm also an architect. And my research specialty is actually K through 12 education. I have a couple of questions for you. I would really like to challenge you to go potentially beyond LEED and look at the Living Buildings Challenge and really look at the building as three-dimensional textbook. Because we're talking about a generation that is really going to have to deal with sustainability in a very different way than we do. And I would say, well, LEED is great and does much more than many other things. We have yet other tools, so I would like to, even if they don't want LEED or anything, just try to be as sustainable as possible. I would also like to mention Kate, who's my neighbor, already brought it up. I was not seeing too many lab spaces or these kind of specialty spaces. They might be currently buried in the learning communities, but I think it's really important to tickle that out. And with the learning communities, while the potting is, it's not new, it's done, right now it looks to me fairly conventional what you're doing there. And I know that a lot of this is massing and programming, but I would really like to challenge you to have the conversation with the teachers and so on about transparency, about opening the building up or closing it down or having that flexibility, because if you don't do it, I think the school district is missing an opportunity. And from my research on contemporary school architecture in Finland, I know that it sometimes takes a lot of convincing. So try to educate the school board and the people who are making decisions. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
We've collected a number of questions I'm going to ask the architects to address, but since it was mentioned about, and I'm sure there are folks who are going to speak with us at the end of the meeting about the kindergarten situation, please understand MELC was well aware of the intentions, and if they said that they weren't, that's simply not true.
For a long time.
For a long time.
It's the busing, it's the transportation at the beginning of the day and the end of the day.
We know what the problem is, but they were told that wasn't going to be part of the deal this year, so we'll answer more questions at the end, but just in case you were leaving, I just wanted you to know that they were actually aware at the beginning that we were doing this.
I understand, I'm not an MELC parent, I deal with Penguin Explorers.
Okay.
But that's not the issue.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Gentlemen, do you want to respond?
We still have to respond to the issue of keeping the grades separately.
I will. I just thought
okay.
Did you have specific ones you wanted us to start with, or?
I do this once a month, so you go anywhere you
Okay. I'll kind of run down the list. Feel free to jump in. So the first question about the special education considerations, particularly the cafeteria and the gymnasium. We've actually had several conversations specifically around that. We're not just looking at physical things we can do in the configuration of the building, but as was mentioned, we're talking about furniture and things like that that can create soft separations so that you don't have quite the stigma associated with separate area versus a regular area. Gymnasium spaces was questioned, how many gymnasium spaces and science labs. The physical education spaces right now consist of a large gym which could actually have 3 stations. There's a separate auxiliary gym that has an additional station. Plus we have several other spaces, dance, yoga, those types of spaces that could be used for physical activity as well as other areas of the building. So while the program is still being pinned down, you're shaking your head, I think you were the one that asked the question. Yeah, okay.
Can you please talk into the mic because you're being
sorry.
Thank you.
So those spaces and the details are still being pinned down.
Before you leave that, we also, in an earlier, much earlier rendition, were looking at the possibility of having to have a suspended track. We think we might not have to do that now. That's pretty expensive, but when we get there, we'll know better.
2 people asked about science labs. There actually are quite a few spaces in the plan that are associated with, science labs and maker spaces and tech spaces. But admittedly, we're still trying to pin down exactly what those spaces will be, how they will function, and in some cases, where they will be in the building. So we're talking about the relationship between those activities and what happens in the learning communities. So there's still some work being done in that regard. But the spaces are there, they're just not necessarily labeled at this point as we define the program a little bit further. Anything you want to add on that?
Just a couple things, if you
Okay,
want to
yeah.
keep going, or?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple things to add. First of all, I appreciate the architects, your advice, and that's really really helpful. And the thinking of the building as a teaching tool, I think, is a huge opportunity here, and it's something that we certainly are going to consider when we get more into the detail on that. And so, but this site has tremendous amount of possibilities. There's a wooded area around it. We've been thinking about this courtyard space. I love the idea of the adding an amphitheater to that as well. And so it's really rich with opportunities in that. And so as we get into the detail, we definitely are going to be exploring that more. The comment about the exploring the learning communities further and really exploring the flexibility and transparency and all of that. We're going to have many, many conversations with teachers about that and really get into that at a very deep level. So expect to see more with that. We also we work around the world, and we do a lot of research as well. A lot of research has been done about our projects, and so we are aware of sort of the best practice and what's out there. And so that is something that we definitely will get deeper into. So,
question on parking. So there are 198 formal parking spaces that are reflected in the plan. We have also considered, as is the case with any school, you have high levels of activity around nighttime events and so forth. So. Those discussions have included, for example, the loop drive around the building, which is there for a number of reasons, provides fire access, provides bus drop-off. We've talked about sizing that so you could have nighttime parking around that and still have the emergency egress around, things like that. So trying to maximize not just the traffic space on site, but we're also still looking with the civil engineer at the way the parking areas flow. So during drop-off and pickup periods, we can maximize the number of cars that can do what they need to do on the site and not off the site. So we're still developing that with the engineer, but it's very much part of our focus. Did I miss anything? I think I kind of went through this. I did. Okay.
Let me emphasize one of the design elements is the gathering stairs, because the whole idea of the amphitheater, this gives, and we must have 3 or 4 that you've designed so far into the building, which really are another opportunity for that. I'm also the 5th grade and 6th grade locations. We have addressed that within the location. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have, the reason why we set it up with 3 learning communities kind of grouped together, that does accommodate a grade level. So we've had some conversations about how 5th grade could be separate. So on the lower level and the main level, there's only 3 learning communities grouped together. So it's possible that on one of those levels, maybe it's the main level, that 5th grade would be completely on their own, separated from the other school, or maybe it would be on the lower level. So those are things that we're going to continue to have conversations about, but that was emphasized to us early on, that the need to have them separated. So there's ways to do that, and we need to explore that further.
Okay, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
You got off so easy.
We also have been talking about, the 6th grade, and it's funny because when you have when you have a child going from 5th to 6th and it's your first, I remember being quite concerned about the 6th graders being around the 7th and 8th graders. And then they go to 9th and you're concerned. So, it's very normal to feel that way, and I think it's reasonable. And so we're talking about, do you think about the 5th and 6th together? Do you think about the 5th completely separately? And then the 5th graders will need spaces for recess in a way that the 6th and 7th and 8th graders don't. And we're talking about, well, maybe this is an opportunity to give 6th graders more opportunity for recess, not research. So anyway, I think these are all things that, but I think also that hopefully that when we have the meetings at the elementary schools, that, more families will be able to come and be part of this conversation. So I think it'll be an ongoing conversation. At this time, I'm going to move into the regular part of the meeting, which everybody is welcome to stay for. And at the end, people can talk, raise questions or comments about any issue. But at this time, I need to have approval of the meeting minutes from the Board of School Directors meetings. That is December 17th, regular business board, December 21st, special meeting of the board, January 14th, Education Committee, as well as accepting the following committee meetings, January 8th, Curriculum, January 11th, Policy, and January 24th, Facilities. I really know how to clear a room here. Okay. Are there any, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And I will turn it over to you, Mr. Copeland, for the update.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Just a few. Several hundreds of students, along with their families and community members, took part in the Martin Luther King Afternoon of Service at Lower Merion High School on January 18th. Congratulations to our MLK Volunteer Service Award winners, Tula Childs from Harriton High School, Lauren Kobitz from Lower Merion High School, Anna Welsh from Welsh Valley Middle School, and Michelle Kelly from Bala-Cynwyd Middle School. Congratulations also to Harriton High School senior Samuel Weissman. Sam was named a top 40 finalist in the Science Talent Search competition, winning $25,000. If he's chosen to be in the top 10 in the competition in March, he could get up to $250,000 for my good friend Sam's research. And finally, our school district had 7 students recognized as presidential scholars. 6 are from Harriton, which had more winners than any other high school in the state of Pennsylvania, 1 from Lower Merion. And that's my thanks.
Thank you.
Still going.
It's your turn.
Human Resources, the superintendent, that's me, recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached Human Resources actions HR 1 through HR 6.
Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are now going to have a report of the Curriculum Committee meeting of the board, and Dr. Van Lynch is not here, so Ms. Robinson is going to do it.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. There were 2 updates. One was a discussion topic, elementary math acceleration. Dr. Eveslog provided the Curriculum Committee of the Board with additional updates regarding the elementary math acceleration opportunities and criteria. The current goal of the elementary math curriculum team is to rely more heavily on local data to inform acceleration, thus eliminating the need for the ERB assessment. The team is also seeking to add a summer bridge opportunity to offer more student access to accelerated math in the 5th grade. Letters have been sent home to the elementary parents, and open houses have been held and well attended. The CCOB thanked the curriculum team for its due diligence in ensuring that the district maximize opportunities for student success at various stages in their math sequence. We also had a PSSA achievement and growth data presentation. All of the Curriculum Committee of the Board meeting related presentation and supporting documents can be found on the district website, and there was a detailed meeting about it at the last education meeting. So you can look it up on board docs under curriculum meeting, as well as in the education supplemental board meeting section. And to recap, in summary, sorry.
It's okay.
This is a lot of pages. And I've lost my last page. There it is. Okay, sorry. Overall summary of the Lmsd achievement data. On average, our student achievement continues to be high across all tested subjects. Growth trends are not consistent across levels. Secondary students are on average exceeding projections on the Keystone exams. Middle school PSSA growth is a concern. Concerns exist around some district-wide subgroup performances, particularly the achievement of our African American students on the PSSA exam. There is not a pronounced gap with growth data for our African American subgroup, but closing the achievement gap requires students to be consistently exceeding projections. Data is often locally relevant, with needs or celebrations within a school being inconsistent with trend data. These concerns are addressed through learning plans constructed at the building level. Closing learning gaps is a priority. Resources and efforts will continue to be focused on addressing learning gaps through several approaches, including one-on-one tutoring, learning plans, specialists, and professional learning. The next meeting of the Curriculum Committee of the Board is on Tuesday, February 5th at 8:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, and again, the detailed presentation was at the last education meeting, so that's that was videotaped.
Under Educational Services, we'd like to take the recommended actions B through C on one motion. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the registration and tuition fee structure for the 2019 summer school program as listed. Further, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the overnight trips request as listed.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Under Student Services, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the student services items as listed. Agreement for students receiving non-district educational services, SS1 through SS3.
Okay, are there any questions at this time? Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. And I will now introduce Mr. Driscoll with a report from Facilities and Purchasing Committee.
Thank you. We met this past Thursday in this room, and we began the meeting, as always, reviewing and recommending for approval tonight the list of bills. We moved on to the following district contract, the MCIU for $510 per day. This is a renewal contract to provide a certified behavioral specialist to assist teachers in addressing certain behavioral issues at Belmont Hills. The district is considering expanding this program into other schools in the future. Next contract was Visual Sound, $14,136.75. This is a software maintenance program for the interactive projector systems used in many of the buildings in the district. We then reviewed and recommended for approval the following items in the purchasing report. Starlight, $12,089.56. Install a new projection screen at Welsh Valley Auditorium as the current projection screen has failed due to age. Penn Jersey Paper, $35,948. This is to purchase 2 combi ovens for Lower Marion High School as the existing convection ovens are failing due to age. And the last one was Clipper Pipe and Service Inc., $139,000. This is to purchase and install excuse me, a new chiller for Welsh Valley summer as the current chiller has reached the end of its useful life. The first and third items were bid through a state-run bidding process. The ovens were bid through a district-run bidding process. Next contract was with First String Sports LLC for $3,200. They're going to rent the Kobe Bryant Gym at Lower Marion High School to run a basketball camp over the summer for 2 weeks. Stormwater Solutions, not to exceed $8,500. They will inspect all above-ground and underground stormwater basins at Harrington High School, part of regular mains to make sure the basins are working properly. Shepherd Restoration Engineers, there's no fee. This is just an amendment to their existing master agreement to account for changes in service fees. CMC Engineering, another no-fee amendment to their master agreement to adjust for their change in fees. Shepherd Restoration, increase of $805. This is to pay Shepherd for work done last winter at the Balakinwood parapet wall. David Blackburn Associates, an increase of $1,220. This is an amendment to an existing contract needed for additional geotechnical work conducted at the 1860 Montgomery Avenue school site, or future school site. Chester Valley Engineers, not to exceed $92,000. They will conduct site evaluation and surveying for the proposed athletic fields at 1800 Montgomery Avenue and 1835 County Line Road. Element Environmental Solutions, not to exceed $5,720. Conduct investigations to determine the presence of hazardous materials such as asbestos, lead PCBs, underground oil tanks, etc. Again, at 1800 Montgomery Avenue and 1835 County Line Road with proposed athletic fields. CMC Engineering, not to exceed $8,800. The tennis courts at Arnold Field need to be redone. CMC will provide the plans and specifications for the work, oversee the construction bidding process, and perform construction administration. It's anticipated this work will be done this summer. Sims Architects, not to exceed $10,400. Sims will provide plans to create a makerspace at Gladwin Elementary's libraries, similar to what has been done at Kenwood and Belmont Hills. This project is really an interior space thing, not an exterior space. The last three contracts were all with Shepherd Restoration Engineers. These were three contracts to provide design, specification, and contract administration for exterior masonry repairs at the following three schools. This work is being done as part of routine maintenance for the district's buildings. Kenwood will be for $42,100, Marion $35,100, and Penn Valley $24,750. We did briefly discuss then we went on to just some informational items. Spiesel Architects, who presented this evening, we did discuss some changes into their contract, but the final details weren't ready until today, which I think we'll be voting on shortly. And then we received an update from the administration on the proposed new middle school building at 1860 and the athletic fields at 1800 Montgomery Avenue and 1835 County Line Road, and the meeting was then adjourned. Our next facilities meeting will be February 14th at 8:30 in this room.
Thank you, Mr. Driscoll. Mr. Orlando?
Under the Business Office and Finance section, I'd like to take items B through G in one motion. The administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve the following action items: approve the list of bills, approve the financial report for December 2018, receipt of the second quarter student activity reports, approve with pleasure pursuant to policy 702, a water filter station from the Belmont Hills Home and School Association of Belmont Hills Elementary School, $150 from Travis and Alexandra Conley in memory of Mrs. Conley's grandmother, Beverly Alexandri, former Lmsb school counselor, to cover outstanding school lunch debts. A Kawhi console piano from Alan Wildberger to the Gladwin Elementary School. Adopt a resolution not to raise the rate of tax of any, not to raise the rate of any tax to support its public schools for the 1920 fiscal year by no more than 2.3%, which is the index established for the district by Pennsylvania Department of Education. And declare items as surplus property and authorize the disposition thereof.
Thank you, and I just want to remind everybody that all of these items were reviewed, as Mr. Driscoll said, in the committee meeting in detail. And I'd also, on behalf of the board and administration, like to thank everyone who has donated to the district. We really, really appreciate it. So at this time, are there any questions? Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. It passes.
Under the Facilities and Operations, all these items A through Q, as noted, Mr. Driscoll's report, were reviewed and discussed at the Facilities Committee meeting. So I'd like to take items A through Q in one motion. The administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve the following items: or contracts for the auditorium projection screen replacement at Walsh Valley Middle School, 2 gas ovens at Lower Marion High School, replaced chiller at Walsh Valley Middle School. Approve the license agreement for First String Sports for the 2019 summer basketball camps for a weekly fee of $1,600. Approve the master agreement for professional services with Stormwater Solutions LLC. Approve an individual work order for Stormwater Solutions LLC for not to exceed amount of $8,500. Approve the contract for professional architectural and engineering services with Spiesel Architectural Group related to the construction of the new middle school. This supersedes the September 24-2018 resolution regarding this agreement. Approve the First Amendment to and restatement of master agreement for professional services between Lower Merion School District and Shepherd Restoration Engineers, Inc. Approve the Second Amendment to and restatement of master agreement for professional services between Lower Merion School District and CMC Engineering, Inc. Approve the First Amendment to professional services with Shepherd Restoration Engineers, Inc. to reconstruct the masonry parapet wall at Ballard Hill Middle School for a not to exceed amount of $805. Approve the First Amendment to professional services agreement with David Blackmore Associates, Inc. for a lump sum of $1,222. Approve a proposal from Chester Valley Engineers, Inc. for civil engineering services for the proposed third middle school for a not to exceed fee of $92,000. Approve the individual work order for Element in Environmental Solutions for a not to exceed fee of $5,720. Approve proposal from CMC Engineering for improvements to the tennis courts at Lower Merion High School for a not to exceed fee of $8,800. Approve proposal from Sims Architects for modifications to the Gladwin Elementary Library for a not to exceed fee of $10,400. Approve proposal from Shepherd Restoration Engineers for masonry facade restorations at Kidwood Elementary School for a not to exceed fee of $42,100. Approve proposal from Shepherd Restoration Engineering for masonry restoration at Penn Valley Elementary School for not to exceed fee of $24,750. Approve proposal from Shepherd Restoration Engineers for major roof and partial masonry restoration at Marion Elementary School for not to exceed amount of $35,100. And finally, approve the quote from Visual Sound for Smart Learning Suite 1-year extended software maintenance in the amount of $14,136.75.
Thank you. I know you guys were really busy. Questions? Any questions or comments at this time from the board? Okay, do I have a motion to approve? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thanks. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay, good. It passes. At this time, I would like to introduce Ms. Robinson, who will give a report of the January 11th Policy Committee meeting.
Thank you. The Policy Committee met on January 11th in this room at 8:30 a.m. Board Policy 007 was adjusted. The change to this policy is that audience recognition is now for action items only rather than agenda items only. Action items are defined as those listed on the regular meeting agenda for a board vote. This policy does not need to come before the committee for a first reading or second reading, as it is not a substantive change that reflects practice and is made for audience clarification purposes only. Future board agendas will state that audience recognition is being taken for action items only prior to the board meeting. For second readings, we had policy in AR 210, use of medication. The change to this policy in AR is to include medical marijuana as an approved form of medication as prescribed by a doctor for specific conditions approved by the Pennsylvania Department of Health. In addition, Narcan will now be held at all schools in case of an emergency to reverse the effects of opiate-related drug overdoses. Policy in AR 246, prohibited harassment by and of students, has been updated to current terminology and best practices and to reflect that this policy applies at and away from school, the training provided, and the reporting procedures. Other related policies such as anti-hazing, bullying, and civility were cross-referenced. For first readings, we had policy in AR 201, admission of beginners. This was discussed briefly, but will be brought back next month with some clarifications. Policy in AR 203, bloodborne pathogens, is set for repeal as most of the language has been moved to policy in AR 205. Policy in AR 205, immunization and communicable diseases. In order to safeguard the community from the spread of certain communicable diseases, the board requires the policy guidelines to be followed. Immunizations are required to be documented and obtained within 5 days of the beginning of the school year or risk expulsion from school. Additional detail can be found in the policy or AR. Policy in AR 211, student accident insurance, was briefly discussed but will be brought back again next month for a first reading with additional information requested by the board. That's as far as we got in the agenda, and the next policy committee meeting will be held on February 8th. That's a Friday morning. Thank you.
Thank you. So we need to vote on the second reading of the Policy 210, use of medication, and Policy 246, prohibited harassment, which Ms. Robinson just reviewed. Are there any questions from board members? Do I have a motion to approve? Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. And then I'm just announcing that we're having the first reading of Policy AR 201, admission of beginners, Policy AR 203, bloodborne pathogens for repeal, and Policy AR immunization and communicable diseases, which again, Ms. Robinson just went over and which will be discussed again at the next policy meeting. Okay, are there any other committee reports? No. Okay, so we have upcoming committees. All right, then at this time, I will call for, oh, did you want to?
Yeah,
Sorry.
it just earlier in audience participation, someone mentioned the morning and the Explorers Club, and Mrs. Buckman sent me a text message because she's aware of it, and I hadn't heard that before. I'm going to be sending the board a document and a form that will allow us to be supportive of some of these groups in the morning, but it has to work into our administrative regulations, so I will make sure you get that. But Amy, could you explain the issue and what our recommended resolution is?
Sure. So we have a number of kindergarten wraparound programs that are within walking distance of some of our elementary schools, and the practice in the past has been that kindergarten students ordinarily get a bus ride if they are not walkers, a bus ride at the start of their kindergarten day and a bus ride at the end of their kindergarten day. So basically, you get a ride at 9 and noon, or you get a ride at noon and 3. The children who walk to these wraparound programs that are within walking distance have had the option of instead getting their rides at 9 and 3, with the middle part of the day getting walked to or from a wraparound program and then walked back. The concern is, what if something happens during the walk? Who's responsible for the children at that part of the day? Because we brought them to our school on a bus, but then they're going somewhere else in the middle of the day before they come back. And so Ms. Schaefer has looked into creating a sort of standard waiver that both parents and those other programs would be asked to sign off on, saying that if the child is on a Lower Merion School District bus or in a Lower Merion School District building at a Lower Merion School District program, they're our responsibility. However, if that child is being walked to another program and taking part in another program during part of the day, for those periods, they are the responsibility of that other program. So it's just some clarity in that walking time.
Get that as we're recommending that as part of an AR to policy, so that we can be supportive, but at the same time protect the the school district.
Okay, thank you. I can't see if Ms. Legg is still here. Can you reach out to her and because I misunderstood what she was asking, because we had been asked that issue separately. So, okay, thank you. Okay, great. So at this time, I'm asking for audience recognition, that is comments or questions from the audience on any issue. It does not have to be an agenda item. It can be any issue that is of interest. So if you'd like to come up and speak, please come sign in with Ms. LaPera. Again, same rules. You need to live here, you need to tell us your name and generally where you live, and it's a 3-minute. So please just first come sign in.
I have a couple names.
Oh, okay, then do you want to call the first people and
I
other
have
people
Lee
can sign in?
Halpern and is it B. Lazaroff?
Okay, so who's first?
Lee Halpern.
Okay, is that you?
Hi, I'm Lee Halpern. I live in Marion Station. I'm the parent of 2 sophomores at Lower Marion High School. We did have 4 kids here earlier today. There was miscommunication. We were told that they couldn't speak at the beginning of the meeting and that they would have to wait till the end, and midterms are over. Too much homework to wait for a couple hours. So they will be back. We moved to this district in 2011 from Chicago, and we targeted this district because it had an outstanding reputation for being innovative, for being high-performing, and we were very happy here. In March of 2014, I was invited, as was everybody, by the school board and the ISC to a presentation by Dr. Judith Owens about teenage brain and sleep, and was bowled away by the district being ahead of this. My kids were in 5th grade back then, and I just thought, by the time my kids get to high school, all of this will be solved. This isn't going to be an issue. Well, sadly, as you all know, it wasn't. Here we are 5 years later, things have not changed. My kids' bus pickup is at 6:38 a.m., which means you're supposed to give a 10-minute window plus or minus. To get to the bus, they have to leave the house at 6:20, which means they wake up at 5:40, which means to get 8 hours of sleep, they'd be going to bed about 9:30 at night, which is ridiculous for a teenager. It's just not going to happen. We live 2.2 miles from school, so the alternative is they can sleep 40 minutes later, I wake up, and I drive them every single day. It's just what happens. I'm also on the road every morning with hundreds of kids who have parking passes here at Lower Marion who are driving without enough sleep. I don't know if you drive by the school or what time you people pull into the building, but there's accidents at least once a week that we pass on the way to school. It's kind of shocking. 1 in 10 accidents statistically are from drowsy drivers, and over 50% of drowsy drivers are 16 to 24-year-olds. So by not doing anything, we're compounding the problem. And I know there's a process, I know there's an agenda, I know you guys have been doing a ton of things, but to do nothing in this period of time is doing harm to our kids. It's been 5 years almost 5 years since that meeting, where I was so impressed by how revolutionary our school district was. And I don't understand why we can't accelerate the process. An entire class and then some of kids have come and gone through high school. My kids are sophomores. At the rate we're going, they will be well into college before there's any changes made. And I don't think it's acceptable. I don't think the community feels that it's acceptable, and I think we need to figure out how to do something to step forward. Every other district around us is doing it.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker?
B.
Good evening. My name is Beatrice Lazaroff. I live in Villanova for over 30 years now, and I'm concerned about the proposed bus entrance for the new playing fields at the dead end at Stone Ridge Lane. That area is an integral part of our neighborhood. It's like the jewel of our neighborhood. Mothers and children and fathers and kids ride their big wheels there. It's an amazing place for everybody to get to know one another. Older people in wheelchairs are walked by their aides, and families gather there. I am so concerned about the danger if that quiet, tranquil street will be turned into an entrance for that ball field right there at that space. It's unconscionable that would bring so much traffic and danger to the neighborhood. And also, we know human behavior. I'm a psychologist. I study human behavior. The minute the community learns that there's an entrance to get into those ball fields, it will not just be 2 buses that go into that entrance. It will be everyone. And I think it's a very bad decision, and I'm very concerned about safety for the people that live there. And I think it needs to be well thought out, a lot more well thought out, because it's a bad area to put a public entrance with a bus when they can be using County Line Road or Montgomery Avenue. So I'd really like you to consider that because it's very, very dangerous and is very upsetting to the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Lisa?
Hi, my name is Lisa Prosnitz. I live in Penn Valley, and I just wanted to mention two things. One is just for clarification on public speaking. Lee contacted me through the Start School Later Facebook page with a group of students who were interested in speaking tonight. They came and were told that they wouldn't be able to speak until the end of the meeting since it was a non-agenda item, and recommended that they come back in February. So I would love to see some clarification in the policy in terms of when students can speak, and I know traditionally they've been allowed to speak in the beginning, during the agenda items. And then the other thing that I just wanted clarification on the library, actually, with the new building. I heard that there may not be a librarian in the building. I just want a clarification on whether it's actually a fully functioning library or it's been a sanctuary for my kids, and I want to make sure that some aspect of that is preserved in terms of it being a quiet space. And I like the idea of the heart of a building and having it be accessible as it passed through, but I also am concerned that it's going to kind of lose its quiet nature. That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. LaPera, do you want to address the agenda issue?
Yes, I did say that it was the discretion of the board president whether or not the students got an opportunity to speak, because that has been what was said in the past. And I did explain that that would be at the end of the presentations, and that we had 3 presentations and it would be a long evening, and then they discussed whether or not they wanted to stay or not. And I did say it several times that it's at the discretion of the board president whether the students get to speak.
Which is, okay. Well, we apologize for the confusion, but it is at my discretion, and I have been allowing students to speak after, when we do audience recognitions, not at the very beginning of the meeting. So, and I will continue to do that.
Sure, just on the Stone Ridge, the current plan allows you to come into Stone Ridge and forces you to make a right-hand turn, so you really would have to go around the other way, and so the intent is to only allow buses to go that way, and then they go right out onto the county line. So they're not, it wouldn't make sense if you wanted to park or bring your car in there or use it as a thoroughfare, because you really couldn't turn around. And so it's really cars that are coming in off county line. In terms of Montgomery, while there is a road, it would dead end to the fields. We wouldn't be able to get there, but that's a concept and we're still working on it. In terms of the building, there is a library. There are a number of quiet spaces. Modern libraries are active places, not sort of as the architect said. There's activity, there's maker spaces, things of that nature. But there is a full, in fact, it's a rather integrated library media center being planned in the new school.
With a librarian.
With a librarian or a media specialist.
Right. Okay.
I think that's it.
Media specialist or librarian? Media. Yeah, can you use, we don't, if you want to ask a further question, you can come up and ask. We'll be done in a second. Ms. Brooks, can you do the sunshine statement for me?
Yep. In accordance with Act 93 of 1998, the Sunshine Law, the Board of Directors met in executive sessions on January 14th and January 28th. On January 14th, the items discussed were real estate, particularly regarding 912 Spring Mill Road, and today was just informational.
Thank you. Upcoming board meeting, which are at 8 p.m. right here in the administration building. Monday, February 11th, the Education Committee meeting. Tuesday, February 19th. So because of the holiday, our usual Monday night meeting is Tuesday, February 19th is our regular business board meeting. We have committee meetings also held in the administration building board meeting at 8:30 a.m., which again is this room. February 5th, curriculum, February 8th, policy, February 14th, facilities and purchasing. I'd also like to add that on January 31st at 7 p.m., we'll be at Gladwin Elementary School to talk about the new middle school. February 7th at 8 p.m., we will be here for an intergovernmental meeting. So that's a meeting between the school district, Lower Merion Township Commissioners, and Narberth Borough Council. So that's February 7th at 8 p.m. And then February 12th at 7 p.m., we have another meeting at Penwyn Elementary School, again, for, discussion of the middle school with parents and families, guardians, everyone who's interested. And thank you all for hanging around for so long, and we are now officially adjourned.